Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining here at PostgresOpen 2019. As the founder of the meetup that happens in New York City called Postgres Women NYC, and a member of our speaker selection committee and the organizing committee here at PostgresOpen, I would like us all to extend a warm welcome to Valerie, who has joined us from California to come speak to us. She is the founder of a nonprofit organization called Tech by Choice that focuses on welcoming early career technologists, particularly people from marginalized and diverse backgrounds. So I'd like to, everybody, please give a warm welcome to Valerie, who will be giving us a talk about sustaining community as a Black woman.
Hello, everyone. So today I will be giving a talk on sustaining community as a Black woman. And my name is Valerie Phoenix, and my pronouns are she, her. So I am the founder and executive director of Tech by Choice, and we are a nonprofit on a mission to increase the diversity in STEM by making sure individuals know that they can enter and stay in this industry because they're thriving the exact same way that the Connors and Chads thrive. You can find me on Twitter at the Digital Black Hippie. I like to talk about art, psychology, and tech. So please feel free to reach out to me and we can chat about this talk, or if you have any questions about Tech by Choice, we're currently expanding. So we're looking for local leaders, teachers, volunteers, and companies to partner with. My DMs are always open for positive conversations. Anything else will just get ignored. I want to give a big thank you to the Postgres community and everyone who worked really hard to put on this event this weekend. I've been thoroughly enjoying myself, and I hope the rest of you have also. So I have this platform and I'm able to speak to all of you today, but the road to get here wasn't that easy. I come from a very non-traditional path. I don't have that fancy computer science degree. I actually have a degree in art and psychology because I wanted to be an art therapist, and that's not really technical. So it made navigating through this space kind of difficult. And I'm not sure if anybody is aware of this, but I'm actually Black and I'm a female. So that added on some additional isms to this already very questionable experience that I've been having in tech. But the great news is I am still here. And it's because I was able to find this community that was able to support me when things got difficult or just really weird. It made it easier for me to stay. But I do have a slight disclaimer. I got a really early jump start on this whole non-traditional path because I was actually adopted at birth by my mother. And for those of you who know about adoption, you know how hard it is for a single woman to adopt, but she did it, and I'm here. So I think I can coin the phrase non-traditional by birthright. I'm really good at this non-traditional stuff. Growing up, it was me and my mom for a long time, but my mom also has 7 sisters and 1 brother. So the best way to explain how I was raised is just to say I was raised by Amazons, a village of amazing Black women who were my first community and my first understanding of what a role model is. There are women in my family who are amazing cooks and are great with power tools and good at makeup, and some of them are really great at running businesses. So this showed me from very early on that if you got enough women in the room, there is nothing that we can't do. They showed me a lot of different things growing up. One of the main things that they showed me is that I can be whoever I want and need to be at any moment. They let me know as a Black woman that I can be angry, and that's perfectly fine. I can also be very happy and sad and feel all these emotions, and I can help people, but I don't always have to save the world. And for them showing me this, they knew I needed to be flexible and to be able to adapt to any environment that I'm in, and this was the best way that they knew how to do that. And this is how they basically just kept it real with me and helped prepare me for the world that I was born into. Growing up, I was always told that I had to be twice as good to get half of what they have. So I knew very early on that I had to be and do my best at all given times. And even doing all of that, there would still be people who would account my success to anything and everything but me. This forced my family to push the importance of finding community that accepted me for me. My mom constantly told me growing up that no one can define your self-worth but you. If they don't like what you're doing, keep going until you find a group that does. They knew that dealing with these additional stressors that this world has put on me meant that I needed to find community that accepted me in order to help me get through those things. So to really summarize what my family taught me about community and role models is, I'll go through these few bullets. First one is the power of having role models that look like you. That was very important to me. Watching my family succeed showed me that I could do it too. They also showed me that there is no such thing as one traditional path, especially when it comes to careers and family. They showed me that gender roles were non-existent and that they were not something that could limit you or tie to your success. Now I know I was really lucky to have this family, to feel this altruistic type of love, and I know some people would think that this compassion and this support system would only work for family. But once I got into high school, I found this to be false. I was selected to be a part of a program called Upward Bound. This program was ran by two women named Amber and Elise. Their job was to bring high schools from the district together and help us get into college. Now, this was really important for me at that time because I went to a high school that had high dropout rates paired with small graduating classes. This pushed our schools to teach us life skills versus college prep. Being the first in my family to go to college, having a program like this for me meant the world. Amber and Elise knew that their students came from lower SES, and they made sure that they accounted for that. They understood that we had things that affected us that other college-bound students didn't. Some of us were worried about having enough food at home, helping our parents keep the lights on, the water. Sometimes we even had to help with rent. We had to deal with all of these things on top of getting good grades and just being a teen. Amber and Elise knew this, and they made sure that they focused on our basic needs so we can focus on everything else. They made sure we knew where local food banks were, how to write a resume, what to do during an interview, and they made sure that we always had school supplies and we didn't have to ask for it. They knew that other students, college-bound students, had an advantage of being able to have ACT and SAT prep classes and private tutors and be able to go to these financial aid workshops, and we didn't have that. So they provided all of those things for us, and all for free. They also knew that we were just teens and that high school drama was real to us, that sometimes when our best friends weren't talking to us, that was the end of the world. And they addressed those things too, and that made us feel like we were human. Like we weren't just a number in the end of the year report that tell them how good or how bad their program was going. Instead, it showed us that they actually cared and that every action that they took followed that. They really thought beyond the program. They knew that the biggest impact that they can have on us was to make sure that we actually got the college degree and we graduated, and with that degree we would have generational wealth that affected more people than just us. So by thinking beyond the program, they made sure that they gave us opportunity to talk to college students to figure out what college life was really like, to talk to counselors to figure out how to plan our classes, and make sure that we understood what paths we could take if anything ever went wrong. They made sure that they knew that they believed in us and that we can do anything. And going through that program and seeing how Amber and Elise built this community, they taught me a lot of different things. They taught me that you don't have to be related to someone to authentically support them. Instead, all you have to do is be able to meet them where they're actually at and try your best to remove as many barriers as possible. Now, I didn't find a community like this again until I started to teach myself how to code. And I was able to go through and learn HTML and CSS by myself, but trying to understand JavaScript as a self-taught developer wasn't easy. There was curly braces and dollar signs and all of this weird stuff happening. I didn't know how to debug or figure anything out, and I wanted to give up. And I knew that in the past, when I wanted to give up, relying on community was the one thing that kept me going. So I knew I had a really good track record with female role models. So I looked for a lot of tech groups and meetups online that were ran and made for women. But going through that search, I noticed that a lot of those meetups didn't seem like they were made for me. It was a cross between the text that they would use, the images, the colors. It just didn't seem like it was marketed towards me. Not to mention, as a broke college student, I didn't have money to pay for classes that I didn't know if it would actually pay off. But I was able to find one free event that really changed the direction of my tech career. I was able to go to a meetup that was a mentorship night out in LA. And even though at a national level, the organization didn't seem like it was for me, when I entered that room, I saw people of all different identities that were all ready to learn and just be a part of tech. And that's how I knew that this was for me. That being able to find a space where I was accepted the same way that I was in high school and by my family, I knew tech was doable. And I had people in that room who could help me get there. And so after I left that event that night, I took out a payday loan and I paid for my first coding class. It was JavaScript 101. It was a class that was taught in a way that it made me feel like that there is no such thing as dumb questions. They were able to make hard concepts seem easy. And this made me felt empowered. It made me feel like I could do anything. It honestly made me feel like I was a hacker. You can't really do much hacking with JavaScript. I found out very soon after that. So I wasn't as cool as I thought I was, but I felt like it. And that's what was important. 6 months after taking that class and a few more, I landed my first dev job. 2 years after that, I felt like I knew enough to give back to that community that helped me get to the place that I was at currently. And I joined a few local communities, and as soon as I did, I understood more policies and procedures that were in place that didn't make sense to me. There was things that were happening in these organizations that just made that electric feeling that I had when I went to that mentorship night, it just died. I realized that a lot of other people in the community were having the exact same problems that I was having. They felt like that community and many others weren't made for them, that the classes were too expensive, that the events were too far out, and that they just couldn't get to these things and learn these skills even though they wanted to. And I realized too that a lot of the people who were running these organizations knew that their members had these problems and did nothing about it. They were treating this organization and their members as if they were just fun facts to add onto a website so they can get more donations. It made me feel like they were actually just running this organization as if their members were just numbers added to a report at the end of the year. That their missions and their values was just add-ons and plugins to make everything sound really great and make it seem like they were doing things, but in all actuality, they were just causing harm. And that didn't sit well with me, and I tried my best to make as much change as I possibly could, but realized I was putting my efforts in the wrong place. That if I instead took that same amount of energy and dedication and put it towards the community, that I can put together an organization that had the policies in place to support people like me, like the people I grew up around, so that I can create a community that mimicked like my family, like the community that Amber and Elise was able to create. And so that's why I created Tech by Choice. I wanted to create a community that was built for those who are always thought of last. And that's what I did. And that's what we're doing now. And one of the things that I've learned since building this organization is that when you're planning and building for people, especially of marginalized groups, you can't build for the happy path, because that's not the path that we have. You have to think about all of the one-off cases that people may experience. And when we're planning events and building out this organization, we kind of break it up into 4 steps. We start with our intention. Figure out what we want people to learn, how we want people to feel before, during, and after an event. And from there, if we start with our intention, we'll never have the issue of intention versus impact. Once we understand what we want people to do and feel, we move on and think about all the barriers that our members will have. If parking is an issue, if gas is an issue, make sure that public transportation is easy for people to use to get to your event. Think about things like that, as well as thinking about childcare. It's something that a lot of people have to figure out to go to these events to advance themselves. Those are just a few barriers that we can remove from people so that they can just focus on what they need to. Once we have a better understanding of those barriers, we move on to a planning stage. And during this planning stage, we figure out all the things that can go wrong. What if we forget signs and things like that and people get lost? How do we fix that? What do we do if we can't provide childcare? Is there any other alternatives? That way, that we are building for the worst experience you can have, so if something does go wrong, we have all of the steps in place and we're able to take action instead of trying to come up with a solution once something goes wrong. And once we do all of that thinking and that brainstorming, we are able to then take action and just build out the event. And that's usually where the fun stuff happens, actually having the event come to life and being able to see people enjoy themselves and learn about tech and this community. That's when you did all the steps correctly, when people leave and say that they've had a good time. Now, I know I did a lot of talking about myself and the community, and I want to have a moment to go over a few things that you can use once you leave today. So I know I talked about events and planning for that non-happy path, and I'll walk you through how we did this for our Mother's Day Tech Liberation. So we realized that our intention, we start there, our intention was to make sure that each member of our community knew that we thought of them as a whole, that they weren't just coming to our events to learn how to code or to learn how to become a designer or things like that, but instead that they were human, that they had family members, and that the best way to keep them in tech and on the path that they were going down was to make sure that their family knew what they were doing. And so we put together this event to celebrate the mothers in our community. And we were able to walk people through a day in the life of a developer or a tech team. And our intention for this event was to make sure that their family could support them on their path. And so we wanted people to feel like they were engaged and that tech was doable. We knew that there would be barriers. One of the main barriers was childcare. If we're putting on a Mother's Day event, people tend to have children if they're mothers. And so we made sure we provided childcare, as well as making sure that the venue was accessible. We made sure that we had proper ventilation, seating, and things like that. And we knew that another barrier was that some people would feel intimidated by jumping into tech so quickly. So we built templates that made it easy for people to just drag and drop information, and they can walk away with a finished website. So you see, we were able to implement all of those different things by going through those stages. I know that was a community event, and maybe not everyone in this room is going to be planning events for local communities. I was actually able to use some of the same steps and planning to revamp the hiring process for a company I worked at. I went through those same stages of figuring out what the intention was, figuring out what the barriers were, and planning and executing for that. So the intention for interviewing and hiring was to find diverse candidates that could help us build out websites. And depending on if they were a junior, mid-level, or senior developer, we had different requirements. So we knew that the intention for each role would be different. So for our mid-level developers, we knew that if they were front-end dev, they had to be able to do day-to-day front-end developer work. And so if you looked at what the current interviewing process was, is you had the phone screening, you had the second phone screening, you had that technical phone screening, you had the coding challenge, and then you had the person come on site for another behavioral screening, another coding challenge, and then just to chat with the team. And then we would make the decision. That didn't really line up with our intentions. So I was able to revamp the interviewing process and simplify it so that we can find qualified candidates and remove barriers to make sure that we were building a team that made sense. So instead of having all of those phone screenings, we had one. And once we did that, and if they passed, we would ask a few technical questions then, and if they passed it, we would move them on to a coding challenge. They were given a coding challenge that looked like work that they would do on a day-to-day basis, not a random algorithm. And after that, they would come on site, and it would be more so of, do you want to work here? Is our environment the environment you would like to be a part of? From there, we were able to hire 3 successful devs that did very well in the company. And that's another way that you can use these steps to support your company culture. So just to recap, I know I talked about a lot of different things today, but I just want to focus on the fact that looking at my family and the other communities I was a part of, I was able to impact the organization that I'm building as well as the company culture at my job. I did this by making sure that when I'm building things out, I keep in mind that the things that mattered most to me and kept me in tech, and that is the power of having role models that look like me, knowing that there is no traditional path, remembering that gender is not tied to my success, and that I don't have to be related to people to authentically support them. Instead, I just need to be able to meet them where they're at and remove as many barriers as possible. So before I end today, I hope you all can walk away knowing that you have the power to change your company culture as well as your community culture. And the easiest way to do that is just to listen to those who are around you and try to remove as many barriers as possible. Thank you.
Valerie, thank you so much. That was amazing. That was absolutely the talk I needed to see today.
Thank you.
Thank you all again for joining us. Before we break up to finish our lunch and then return to the afternoon sessions, I'd like to let everybody know that at 4:50 p.m., that's 450, we will have our closing remarks for the evening, and then you are going to see each other at the next event and continue to build our communities in the meantime. So thank you all for all of your help in making the Postgres community as strong as it is and as much stronger as it will be in the future. See you soon.